Taking in different world views, different perspectives is so crucial. It's so crucial when you're doing any kind of strategic work with others, when you're trying to collaborate or trying to find a solution for a problem, when you're trying to problem solve, when you're trying to create perhaps a campaign to connect with multiple audience segments, when you're trying to find agreement in debate, when you are resolving a conflict. There are so many settings, so many reasons why it's really crucial for us to get our heads round taking in multiple worldviews and perspectives. I'm going to look at a consulting example. So, when you're consulting different people within an organization, I think this could perhaps help illustrate the point of why it's so important to question ourselves within this mix. So, welcome. I am Serena, and this is Think with Serena. I'm a strategic consultant and a systems thinker, currently doing my postgrad study in systems thinking. I'm also somebody with 20 years of experience in media and communications, a chartered public relations practitioner, and a streamer and commentator on my separate streaming channel where I talk about media and politics. And I like to notoriously sit on the fence and try and speak common sense. I'm the director and founder of think tank Puck's House, which is launching spring 2025. And I'm here to create content and help educate. Let's not gatekeep this wonderful information that we all need, whether you're a student, a leader, or an entrepreneur. There's much more that you can learn about me. I'll come to that later. So let's get into a consulting example, because when you're in an organization and you're having to consult multiple perspectives, multiple people basically, in order to get to a better idea or a better solution, or to get agreement, to get approval on something, what you have to do as the sort of practitioner or the person seeking it, whatever your role is in the situation, perhaps you're facilitating something, what you have to do is listen to everyone. We get that. Perhaps you're in charge of trying to lead the problem solving, the actual solution. You're having to collect and curate all of those different perspectives and to crystallize something so that you can get to uh you can meet the objective, you can get a result that everyone will be happy with. The likelihood is what ends up happening is everyone is so fixed that they're only willing to budge a little bit, and you have to do a very watered down version of what your initial objective was in order to really make an impact. So, to really make an impact, you need people to really move from their position. But you've got to be pretty skilled at negotiating this with them. You've got to be diplomatic, you've got to earn their trust, you've got to get them to open up. Now, as a practitioner in this mix, you also have to be very aware of your own assumptions, your own perspective, your own bias, right? Very often when we're doing this work, we can become quite fixed in our own perspective on taking on these all these perspectives. A funny example is, oh yes, I'm very open-minded. I'm here to take in all perspectives. That's who I am. I'm this open-minded person. I'm very, I'm a critical thinker. Before you know it, you've constructed a view, a starting point that is actually limited in some ways because you've put your own identity into it, and it's unavoidable. That's why it's really important when you're doing this work to put yourself in the mix. So all of these all of these perspectives are being seen and sort of recognized by me in this mix, the practitioner. It's not for you to necessarily explain to others, but to be mindful of it yourself, to always be aware that, okay, this is me who's observing this. It's not, I cannot possibly, I can try to be as objective as possible. My lens isn't entirely objective because there's subjectivity going on. We all go around our lives with these subjective mental models. That's why I have merchandise called biased. I don't have the mug with me right now or the caps, etc. But we can't help it. We're human. But, I talked about this in a previous episode where I was talking about being really aware of ourselves, our assumptions, but also our ego and the sort of like intellectual monkey brain that's sort of like just literally swinging from branch to branch. In this sort of facilitation position, in this sort of role of being a facilitator, what's really most definitely required. Sorry, I had to change the background because it was doing this flickering thing and it was really troubling me. So it might be troubling you. So I changed it. So when you're a facilitator, you're trying to be as neutral as possible. And so in order to do that, you've really got to put your own thoughts and feelings sort of to the side, or at least be aware of them. You've got to be able to challenge your own sort of assumptions, your own views about the situation. And so when we are then taking in, so that's the first bit, when we are then taking in all these perspectives, if we're not aware of our own subjectivity or our own slant on things, perhaps we're really quite entrenched in the organization, the team, etc., etc. Perhaps we are really in the mix. What might happen is we are only open to a certain degree of challenge, a certain degree of difference. So, for us to really make an impact, we've got to really be as open as we could possibly be in this situation. We've got to try and challenge ourselves so much that even when we're hearing something that doesn't quite make sense and we don't initially agree with it, we don't immediately resonate with it, we give it a chance. We still put it in the mix. Even if we don't currently understand it, or we don't currently have the data for it, or we don't currently have anything to back it up, it's still a possibility. So you've got perspectives, but what about possibilities? Because perhaps, let's just say, a perspective was once a possibility and then it became more entrenched because there was more evidence for it. There was more experience around it. So it's about us being able to entertain the what if, or gosh, I didn't even think of that. So that then the people around that table feel free to actually offer completely different views, and be perhaps more open and honest and to share that difference. Because it's only when you do that, then you really begin to uncover what's really going on. So in change management situations, it's going to be really hard for you to take people on this sort of journey and this trajectory to the ultimate change. It's going to be really difficult for you to do that and do it effectively if you haven't created a sort of environment or an atmosphere or an opportunity for people to just really express themselves or to offer up ideas. If all of those sort of ideas, the challenge, the sort of what if, the innovation, if it's all sort of untapped, if it's all sort of just kept closed up because an opportunity is not being given for it to come up to the surface, even if it's just a possibility and there's no evidence or anything to back it up, then what happens is it stays in and it can actually become much more amplified, and that's when it becomes resentment, or it can actually sort of fuel disengagement with the process. So then you're not engaged with the process and the change or the campaign or whatever it is that you're looking to achieve. You're not bringing everyone along with you. Not everyone feels heard. And what often happens then is people in leadership say, well, if you didn't offer it, what can we do about it? If you didn't communicate it, You didn't say, instead of thinking, well, hang on a second. Have we fostered, facilitated, provided, cultivated a culture, an environment, an atmosphere, an opportunity for openness, for people to come forward with ideas? But even if the ideas are what ifs or never thought of this, can we just record it? But then also following up on it. So just because it doesn't make sense to the facilitator or those who are in more agreement doesn't mean that it should get discounted. Are we going with the majority? Because often what could be the case is that minority around the table might represent most of the organization or majority or a significant group within the organization, and they've not been accounted for, they've not been factored in. And so when we're taking in multiple perspectives, not only do we have to ensure that we are fostering openness within and in an environment that we are completely open to new, unfounded ideas, because that could lead us somewhere. I think this sort of degree of openness requires a degree of creativity as well. Because when you're in a creative state or in a flow state, you're open, you're very much in the moment. I was doing some painting, was it painting or sketching with my nieces and my daughter? We were around the table, and then my sister joined in. So the adults joined in, and they were talking about, my art because I paint. And I think somebody said that, oh, they like what I do compared to what they do. And quite often when I'm creating a piece, I'm just doing it in the moment. It's not a concept. And I think I was trying to describe that about how it's very much for me, the abstract acrylic expression of art is very much being in the moment and being much more intuitive. I think that kind of sort of creative state cultivates a sort of curiousness with what could possibly come next, even though I don't know what that is. You can learn much more about me in the description. You can come to my site, sign up to my newsletter, and also I have my Patreon. But at the very least, please do thumbs up, drop me a comment, let me know what your background is, what you're looking for in terms of strategic thinking content, and do sub. I appreciate that, and I'll see you in the next one.